This is the Halftime Show with Omar Adori on Pulse 95.
That time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Adori. I am your host, covering everything sport, international and local. Hope you're having a blessed day wherever you're tuned in around the world, whether it's 95 FM, pulse95radio.com, our app, Sharjah Broadcasting Authority, or even if you're chilling at home watching us live on YouTube. Thank you very much for connecting with me, and hopefully I'll be spending this hour with you, making it worth your while. Right, okay, so a couple things to tackle today. As we approach the end of 2020, we reflect on ways to unwind your mind. There's many things we've spoken about on the show in terms of mental fitness, in terms of being aware, being mindful, being grateful, but also being reflective. So how are you going to be reflecting on 2020? We talk about podcasts, and that's another thing, playlists, and how it affects your psychological mindset, because a lot of the time we resort to these things to be able to actually find what is good for our mind. And I didn't even mean to rhyme at that point. Superstition can be a funny thing in sport. What's the strangest superstition you have come across or seen an athlete do? We're going to be discussing that as well. I spoke to Hani Bilqis now just about his superstition when he goes to the gym. But I want to hear from you guys. 4215 Itasalat or do, or slide into my DMs and let me know, do you have any superstitions when it comes down to training, playing a sport, or even if you've heard a strange one, let me know. Looking forward to hearing that. And which athlete or team has had a great 2020? Now, we all know that 2020 has been a challenging year for all of us and has been a very strange year. But who has actually made the most of it? Let me know. 4215 Itasalat or do, and I'll be right back after this. Let's play you some music. Khalid, and we'll be right back. Enjoy.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Aduri on Pulse 95.
Salam, welcome back to the Halftime Show with Omar Aduri. I'm your host, covering everything sport, international and local. Thank you very much for spending the next hour with me. I hope I'm going to make it worth your while. Sending you love and positive energy to everyone who's locked in with me on the only place to be at 3 on Pulse 95 Radio, the Halftime Show. Right, okay, so a couple of things came to mind, and actually it's inspired as this will be the last show of 2020 for me on the Halftime Show. But the good news is in a couple of days' time, it'll be 2021. And then I'm going to be with you again. So yes, we are going to be talking about quite a few things here today. The thing I wanted to ask you guys is, what do you guys listen to unwind your mind? Is it podcasts? Is it music? Is it a specific type of platform? Because I think more than anything, I think reflecting on 2020, it's been a crazy year. You know, 2020 has been a year that no one could have predicted. A year that has challenged both our mind and our body. Personally, I continue to question my self-worth, self-love, and self-value when tackling my own mental health, which is something we talk about a lot on the show. With my roots and upbringing, it wasn't always easy to be able to discuss how we feel, and whether clients or athletes or anyone that, you know, lives the day-to-day. I got a chance to listen to a lot of people this year on the radio, and in listening to those people, there was a lot of issues that were common that we could identify that everyone was facing. And in doing so, it kind of brought mental health to the surface even more. So in a way, the world served us something that was very, very common as we all shared all the challenges we faced. Now, despite having a platform to discuss this topic, raising awareness in the region has been somewhat of a challenge, especially in the Middle East. Mental health was already something that many struggled with in silence, and that's why they refer to it as the silent killer, because it's something that can really tackle your brain. And if you're not able to speak about it, it's a stigma that a lot of men and women face every day. But it's often carried a cloud over it due to the stigma that follows in a room when someone chooses to open up a subject about mental health. Now, through unprecedented times, it's caused a lot of uncertainty with the way we think, feel, and absorb information. The fact that we weren't able to see colors, shapes, and sizes, our brain was telling us all sorts of different things, regardless of what you were going through. And that was something that I personally had to experience with the help of my family and my friends. Now, I like to look at mental fitness because mental fitness is something you can practice. Mental health has a stigma where people think that, you know, it defeats you, but it's not actually defeating you. It's actually giving you practice, and practicing it daily is something that we can do as long as we keep working at it and keep trying to conquer it. And in that way, it requires us to detach from the mayhem that we find ourselves with work and family and all the pressures that come with life, responsibilities. But being able to detach from daily stress, anxiety, and pressure requires us to flex our brain. And in order to flex our brain, that takes effort, it takes energy, it takes time. And that's something that, having written that down, I was able to kind of reflect on it a lot. But now listening to different type of things, you got to be careful what you listen to, because at the end of the day, if you're listening to negativity, that's kind of the thought process you're gonna ride. But if you try to surround yourself with the right people, or even try to listen to the right things, this is where, for example, I've been listening to Jay Shetty a lot recently, Mufti Mink even, just to be able to get different perspectives on things. And that's why, I've always asked this question to a lot of my guests. When we want to train the body, we go to the gym, but where do you go when you want to train your mind? And from meditation to breath work, a lot of the times we're in an age that gives us the tools to be able to experiment. And that's something that a lot of people are starting to understand now, that we're very fortunate to be living in this era because we have access to technology. We have access to being able to reach out to people without being in front of them. And that's something that 2020 has served up for me personally. The reason I say experiment is because we need to find what works for us in a daily routine, not one size fits all. And I never claim to be someone who knows everything, but I always am keen to listen to what people have to say, and that's something that I always advise. And as easy as that sounds, 80% of the people who approach me about mental health have struggled with time management, and that's another thing that maybe coming into 2021 we can all do together. We can try and manage our time better, try to be a little bit selfish and give yourself the self-love and self-care to be able to project that kind of message, that kind of vibe, that kind of energy. And that's where we're rolling with that. But what do you listen to? And do you ever sit in silence? 4215 Ittasalat or slide into my DMs at Omar Duri and let me know. We're going to take a little bit of a break. What better than listen to some John Legend, and we'll be right back after this.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Duri on Pulse 95.
Salam, welcome back to the Halftime Show with Omar Duri. Thank you very much for connecting with us here on Pulse 95 on the heart of Sharjah. Right, okay, so if you're just tuning in and you're wondering what have you missed out on, the first episode, or actually not the first episode, the first segment of the episode was something we spoke about in terms of reflection. Now, what do you listen to unwind your mind? That's kind of like the question of the day, and I'm really interested to hear the different type of things. Some people have said some really cool things. Almas said she listens to things to do with football, but also I've also got a couple other people that are sending things like Jay Shetty, Joe Rogan. It's a lot of cool things there, when it comes down to that. So I'm very interested to see what you guys think. But also, one of the things, and I have to tell this story, right? So a lot of you know about fantasy football and the role it plays, and not just because we are we're competitive, but also like the banter that comes with it. A year ago I set up something on Pulse 95 with fantasy football, because everyone that knows I have football background, so that's something that I like to do, and also interact with people. So for those that don't know, fantasy football is a game that you play which is based on real life action. So for example, if you support Manchester United like Hassan does, then and you put those players in your team, you only now 3 players per team, and you have 100 million to be able to spend for the whole squad. If those players in real life do well, then you get points. At the end of the year, you're in a league, and that's how you try and win against your friends, and etc., etc. So recently, my cousin, who's a huge football fan, shout out to Yassine Kamil, who is probably locked in right now. He's a huge football fan, but for some reason, he's always been scared to try and get close to football, because he wrote a movie called The Halami. If you haven't checked it out, it's on Netflix, The International Player. But at the same time, he's someone that watches football a lot. So I said to him, hey, listen, this year you've got to play fantasy football. You've got to play fantasy football. Come on, please. And I said that for the last 3 years, and he absolutely ignored me, right? Okay. So he's come on this year. He said, okay, fine. All right, I'll play it. He's so addicted to it right now that we spend large chunks of our day on voice note talking about fantasy football. A couple of days ago, I think Aston Villa were playing. And he had a player in his team, Anwar Al-Ghazi, and he scored. And my cousin jumped up and started celebrating. Now, what's even worse about this is every now and then, my cousin will go, what do you think of this player? And I'll say, yeah, he'd be really good. You should get him. And I genuinely believe he should get him. And he gets him. He is absolutely smashing me in fantasy right now. His points compared to mine. And he said something today. He's like, you remember when Arteta faced Guardiola and Arteta won, and Guardiola said, yeah, but I taught you. He said, that's how I feel right now, because he's absolutely doing great in fantasy football. And I am really not doing well this year. But someone who is doing well this year is the person who's top of the halftime show Pulse 95 radio fantasy football league that we have. on Fantasy Football Premier League. And his name is Ilya Musawwar, and his team is called Chaos FC. He has 1,023 points, and the season is barely even halfway, which is unbelievable. So well done, Elia. I hope I mentioned your name right. I pronounced your name right. That is insane to be able to get those kind of, results. Some of it is based on skill and tactic and being able to know who's playing, who's available, who the opponent is, how many they've conceded. And some of it is a touch of luck. But I think when you have 1,023 points, it's definitely not lucky, because you're about 300 points more than me, and we've both played the same amount of games. So, Elia, well done so far. If you're top of the league at the end of the year, then I might even get you on the show for a minute. There you go. I'll let you actually tell me how you won the league that year, because sometimes we don't have connection with the fantasy football because there's no forum to message. So it's really interesting that he tagged me today on Instagram, and he told me that I'm top of the league. So hey, Elia, well done. Congratulations. Maybe you can give me some tips, because clearly I'm not following my advice because I'm doing really bad this year. But my cousin Yassine Kamel is doing a lot better than me. So I'm really happy that he's actually doing that good. Now, there you go, guys. There's something that, just messing about with your mind a little bit, having some fun. 2020 is ending in a very strange way. Sport is around the corner. But which athlete or team stands out? Send in your answers, okay, to that question. And I'll be right back after the break on Pulse 95.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Adouri.
Sure is that time. I am back in full effect on Pulse 95 Radio. Thank you very much for joining me for the hour. Right, some really good questions coming in, and Spicy is throwing the fire here on Instagram Live, asking me about when I asked the question, which athlete or team stands out? And with current topics that everyone is talking about now, what questions did you have? So the first question that he asked in here was, do you think that United are in the title race, or they don't have the mentality to go for it? Very good question, Hassan. So clearly they are in the title race. That's something that I think, we have to kind of accept, whether the people have been playing well or not. I think what we have learned, especially with, the current situation now, only being 2 points behind Liverpool in the Premier League, which is a very competitive league, and getting through the Christmas, Boxing Day and New Year's period of time where there's a lot of sports. It's also shown a lot of, let's say, static games, really dry games. These guys are athletes. They're people that, have been put through it. Every 2 days they play games. So the fact that Manchester United could beat Wolves yesterday in the 94th minute to win the game 1-0 shows that people are grinding out results. So overall, it does tell me a lot about United. Do they have the legs to be able to get past the finishing line? That's a different story, because if they get one or two injuries, and obviously to Bruno Fernandes, who has been an integral part, it just seems like everything he's touching now is turning into gold, then at that point, that even the other day, he was reaching out for a ball, it hit him and went through as an assist, and they scored. Yesterday, he played a long ball over the top. There was no one tracking Rashford cut in and shot. So if an injury happens to him, I think Fred, I think McTominay, those guys have been, quite important for you guys. I also think if United start using Cavani a lot more, then I think they will have a great chance of at least putting some legs on that race for the top spot, because at the moment now there's a lot of draws, a lot of static games. The big teams are definitely being challenged, especially with no fans in the stadium. It's been a very interesting period. Which athlete or team stands out for you in 2020? Now, a lot of things has happened in 2020, and we spoke about it earlier when it comes down to, what a tricky year it's been for everyone. But which team or athlete stands out for you? If you think about, Anthony Joshua, where his career was last year. If you think about Habib Nurmagomedov, who, on paper has said he's retired, that was amazing. If you think about Novak Djokovic, if you think about, Liverpool, or you think about Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo winning Player of the Decade, there's so many factors here that says that 2020 has been something that has been, very interesting in terms of people still staying focused, people still staying on track, looking after themselves, knowing that at any point now there could be another lockdown in Europe, which would force teams to stop playing and then start to train your mind again. Very, very interesting stuff on there. We've got Spicy saying, if they want to be in the title race, United must buy a fast centre-back. I don't know if I agree with fast. I think in terms of positional sense, someone that can marshal, can control, can be a leader for the back four. I think Wan-Bissaka is exceptional. The boy Telles has got some very good set pieces. Shaw is pretty good as well. Bailly I really like. Lindelof and Maguire, I'm not too convinced on Maguire, but Lindelof I think is decent. So I think they've got definitely a lot of things happening. And then also Murad's mentioning Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton exactly has done great things, this year, and actually he's been very, very consistent as well. Verstappen as well. Whenever I mention Lewis Hamilton, people say, "What about Verstappen?" Well, Verstappen as well did some great things as well. So you see, looking at all these players and all these teams and athletes, it has been a good year for 2020, and they have managed to stay focused. Liverpool won the league with no fans. Leeds got promoted into the Premier League, which was interesting. Federer and Nadal keep challenging, keep pushing forward. The exceptional talent of the youngsters who've come on the scene as well. There's a lot of good things happening there. Now, on the next segment, what we're going to be talking about is superstitions. Do they exist? Do you have any? If you have any superstitions, what are they? And is it vital for your psychological state to be able to stick to those superstitions? Because a lot of people say it's nonsense, don't believe in it, etc. But I'm actually really interested. I know I used to have one or two back in the day when playing football, but do you guys have any? And if so, what are they? Let me know, hit me up, and I'll mention them on the next segment on the only place to be at 3, the halftime show on Pulse 95.
This is the halftime show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the halftime show with Omar Al-Duri, and it is coming up to my last show of 2020 with you here on Pulse 95 Radio in the heart of Sharjah. Thank you very much for sharing this hour with me. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're just tuning in and want to catch any of our shows, the podcasts are available on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Anghami, or even head over to our YouTube if you prefer a visual, and we got all of our great guests on there, and the shows are cut up thanks to Super Mario and Gabby, who do a great job here at Pulse 95. And so one of the questions that came in from our listeners is, what are some of the things we can do to ease and train our minds? Right, okay. So if you have tuned in on the show, you've probably seen me talk about mindset, inner child. So resorting back to your inner child by doing some color therapy is actually really good. It's actually really, really good. Some people go, I'm not a kid. Why do I need to color? Because we all have the inner child in us, and that's something that makes us happy and often raises a smile because it does something to our brain which relaxes us. Grab a coloring book and some pencils. You will be shocked at how quickly you occupy the mind and affect your day in a positive light. So that's one thing. Breath work. You've seen me talk about Wim Hof on the show. He's got guided meditation, he's got breath work, and he's got ice baths as well, which is really, really cool. So make sure you check that out. The show that I had on there, you'll find it on YouTube as well, the Wim Hof show on the halftime show. Really, really good. It helped me with COVID, actually. Listening to your favorite album. God, when was the last time you listened to an album? I mean, now it's all about playlists, right? And I did promise you guys I'm going to put a playlist together. You know what? I was relying on my music producer, Sama, who's not here. I don't think she is. Is she? No, she's not. Excuse me, to help me out. Looks like I'm going to be doing the playlist. So yeah, if you are listening, I just busted you on radio. Shout out to Jay as well, who's listening, whose song Emirati Deal was played on radio for the first time ever on Monday, which was amazing. What else we got? Gratitude journal. Does anyone have a gratitude journal? That's something that I would say would help. And insert additional example are all considered in mental therapy. So there are a few things there I would definitely recommend. We are approaching full time. Where's the whistle gone? There you go. Full time on the halftime show. But remember, guys, you can catch us every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, 3 to 4 on Pulse 95 Radio. Thank you so much for everyone that supported, and also the questions that were coming in were really, really cool. Keeping the show alive. Guys, I've enjoyed 2020 with you. I hope you have a blessed a blessed couple of days now. I will see you in 2021, which is only a couple of days away, for the first show of the year. Enjoy, guys. Have a great day. Positive love and energy to everyone out there listening to the halftime show right now. Love. After this is the afternoon karak with Aisha Al-Mazmi and Mikhail Atiyah. Make sure you tune into them. Those guys are awesome. Shout out to everyone who's listening in. Guys, I'm out. Peace.
If you liked this episode of The Halftime Show, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories. Pulse.